So if you've been away from the news over the weekend, you might have not heard that Sebastian Gorka is going to be leading the anti-terrorism campaign under Donald Trump. And when I first saw this, I laughed, I chuckled, just as I chuckled when Matt Gaetz was chosen by Donald Trump, and Matt Gaetz is now on Cameo. That's what he's doing these days. But Sebastian Gorka, yes, that's right. That's the guy that's going to be in charge of the anti-terrorism group under the Donald Trump administration. Now, obviously, this is another ridiculous pick, a guy that has very little to no experience in this area. He's a complete fool. If you listen to any of his podcasts, you would know that. And again, this is a guy that's going to be in a powerful position, not one of the most powerful positions in Donald Trump's administration, but it still is a powerful position. So I want you to listen to what Sebastian Gorka said. Do you remember the Paul Pelosi attack where Paul Pelosi almost died? Say what you want about Nancy Pelosi. I'm not a huge Nancy Pelosi fan, but this was a horrible, violent attack. And do you remember the hours and days, even weeks after this attack, you heard stuff from Ted Cruz and Matt Gaetz and others that somehow this was some sort of gay relationship gone bad and Paul Pelosi allowed him in and all the conspiracy theories that were floating around. Well, guess what? Sebastian Gorka was one of those people. Listen to what he said just days after Paul Pelosi's skull was smashed in by a hammer.
But I want to know, what is a pro-nudist hemp activist doing wanting to attack Nancy Pelosi? And also lots of questions unanswered. He was tying him up, but then they got into an altercation. How are you having an altercation with a hammer if you've been tied up? And where were the security guards? Oh, and here's the last question. A little bit like that DNC pipe bomber. Are we going to see footage from the Pelosi security camera? Because I guarantee you now that there was footage, that the cameras are all over that Tony $6 million house. Are we going to see the footage? Will it be released? And why is it taking so long for us to have a photograph of the attacker? We've got his name, but it's strange. Not even the police press conference released a photo.
Yeah, well, guess what? The photo was released because there was an ongoing investigation, you fool, you imbecile. This is Donald Trump's Director of Counterterrorism, who you just heard on his podcast, who suggested that the whole thing was a big conspiracy and it was all staged. It was not staged. That man is behind bars. He was a deranged individual that was trying to murder Paul and Nancy Pelosi. You stupid fool. Now, did he ever retract any of that stuff? Did Ted Cruz ever retract any of his conspiracy theories or Matt Gaetz? Nope, they didn't. This man almost died. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care whether you have an R or a D next to your name. This is Trump's next Director of Counterterrorism who suggested that the Paul Pelosi attack was a conspiracy and it was staged. Again, another example that Sebastian Gorka is an idiot. Here's Sebastian Gorka. Now, if you really want to know why Donald Trump picked Sebastian Gorka, just listen to this soundbite right here, and it'll give you the very simple answer.
This is the most innocent man in American political history. For 6 years, they've come after him. First, the Billy Bush tapes, then Russia collusion, then the Mueller probe, then impeachment 1, then the quid pro quo, then impeachment 2, then the January 6th committee, now raiding his private home, never convicted of any crime. Is there anyone in politics or outside of politics who could have survived the scrutiny this man has undergone? And
by the way, 34 count felon has been convicted. That's number one. Number two, when you say they, well, who's they? Notice how they use the same terminology with the two people who attempted to kill Donald Trump in an assassination attempt. They say they, and they tried to mean Democrats. That right there in that one soundbite is the reason why Donald Trump picked Sebastian Gorka, because Gorka is another imbecile who has been wearing the Donald Trump knee pads every day, bending into a pretzel, bending the knee for Donald Trump, kissing the ring, whatever term you want to use. That right there is the reason. It's all about loyalty, and it doesn't matter whether you're qualified for the position or not. You look at all the other people that he's been trying to appoint, like the Pete Hegseth of the world. I should call him Pete Hegseth. That's what I really should call him. Pete Hegseths of the world. You know, and the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, the Matt Gaetz. I mean, I can go on and on. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the list goes on and on and on. It's ridiculous. This is the guy, the Trump Director of Counterterrorism, in his little weird, ridiculous outfit, looking like he's going out to hunt deers, putting out a video, shooting a gun. It is so awkward. Just have a listen to this.
With the trigonometry boys, showing them what weekend fun in America looks like.
Wow, what a tough guy. All these right-wing Republicans, you notice that? They're all such tough guys because they know how to shoot a gun. By the way, if you ever watch Sebastian Gorka shoot a gun, he doesn't look like he shoots it very well. Again, looks like a complete clown, an imbecile, 400 pounds of chewed bubble gum. Sebastian Gorka also, for those of you out there that were anti-Kamala Harris, anti-Joe Biden, pro-Palestine, those that were protesting across the country, calling him Genocide Joe, well, I want you to listen to another member of Donald Trump's upcoming administration, right? If Mike Huckabee wasn't bad enough, he doesn't think that the Palestinian people should even exist. Again, this is Sebastian Gorka now saying that there's no such thing as Palestine. Have a listen to this.
Why can't you talk about genocide in Gaza? And is that the same with all of the Trump?
Because there isn't any genocide in Gaza. There is no such thing as Palestine. Do you know what the etymology of the word Palestinian is? It was a name invented by the Roman Empire.
Yeah,
to
the
insult
problem is,
Jews.
it's an impartial interlocutor. You know that is not shared by the rest of the world. The rest of the world disagrees with you, so you're going to be you're going to be again.
I'm glad you talk for the rest of the world. I'm glad you talk for the rest of the world. You mentioned the word
It's
hubris.
the United Nations General Assembly resolution.
My God! Oh, the United Nations that sends people in blue helmets to rape little girls in Africa. Why did I not listen to the United Nations? What a clown show, really? As far as I'm concerned, the United Nations could be pushed into the Hudson, okay? What have they done to solve anything of late except create child prostitution rackets in Africa?
Just finally, tell me, what do you think of the UN pick? What do you think of the US?
You really represent the world. The world has this opinion. Who are you to say you represent
We'll
the
have
voice
to
of
get
the
you
world?
on again to talk more about the cabinet positions.
Who are you, really?
Yeah, who are you?
Unbelievable.
Who are you, you imbecile? Who are you, Chubbawamba? You fool, you. The lead of anti-terrorism just said there's no such thing as Palestine. He said it was a name invented by the Roman Empire. I wonder, all those people that are pro-Palestine in this country that were so anti-voting for Kamala Harris, I'm wondering how you feel about this. And the ambassador in this country to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who doesn't think that, Palestine should even exist. Palestinians should even exist on the planet. I'm wondering how you feel about these appointees, because nobody in Joe Biden's administration has made statements like this. No one. And I can't believe I'm going to say this right now. This is a first for me. I've been doing radio for a long time. I'm old. I can't believe right now I'm going to agree with Alex Jones. I think for once, Alex Jones got something right. I want you to listen to the InfoWars moron who had this to say about Sebastian Gorka.
Because it's not about Gorka, who's a nobody, wasn't even a conservative, came into the Trump administration with fraudulent credentials, lied that he was a combat veteran. None of that was true. I mean, he's stolen glory. He's the snake oil salesman. He's everything he says we are. But I learned the day I was there that Gorka was going around having people thrown out. And I just go, whatever, don't engage the gay whale is what I call him. I'm not saying he's actually gay, but he's very effeminate in these pictures with guns, posing with them. And, he's always sashaying around, shaking his booty, going, Gorka. Oh. So I'm just like, the gay whale. I mean, the dude acts like a flamer. Now, I don't think it's flamers. He just, if I was going to cast a fat gay dude for a movie, it'd be Gorka.
Now, listen, I'm not going to use gay slurs. I would never do that. I don't care what his sexuality is, so I disagree with Alex Jones about that stuff. I agree with the first part of what he said, but he's right. I mean, this guy is completely unhinged. You want to talk about stolen valor or lies about serving. Everything that Sebastian Gorka says usually is not true. and all he does is kiss the ring of Donald Trump. Now, Alex Jones would never talk like that now because he's a coward. And I'm not trying to defend Alex Jones in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying a lot of what he said in that clip, I agree with. Alex Jones is a fraud. You could also apply the same, Sebastian Gorka is a fraud and Alex Jones. But you could also kind of put input into what he said about Gorka, and you can apply that to Donald Trump as well. You could say the same thing about Trump, habitual liar, lying about his past, never tells the truth, a scumbag, a snake oil salesman. And as Marco Rubio said it best, right, if Donald Trump didn't get a $500 million company from his dad, he would right now be selling fake gold watches in Manhattan. There's no question about that. That's who Donald Trump is. And then there comes the race factor, the racism factor. I don't hear anybody talking about Donald Trump's administration being too white. Where are all the black people in his administration? I'm just asking that question for the Blacks for Trump. But this is lunatic Sebastian Gorka. Who even uses this term, a colored woman? Like, who talks like that? Gorka referring to Kamala Harris as a colored woman. Listen to this.
They think that Kamala Harris is going to do better in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania than Joe Biden would. I mean, that's something, because it can't be anybody else.
Hey, Rob, you're being logical. Stop it, all right? She's a DEI hire, right? She's a woman. She's colored, therefore she's got to be good.
Yeah, there you go. Gorka might as well just call her the N-word. That's who these people are. You want to speak about DEI hires? Let's have that conversation. Didn't earn it. Sebastian Gorka, limited to no experience in the category to lead anti-terrorism. Sebastian Gorka is a DEI hire. Didn't earn it. Matt Gaetz, glad he stepped down. He had to. You think he would have earned the role of the Attorney General's position? How about Liz Stefanik? You think Stefanik earned her role? Besides being a Russian asset, what about Tulsi Gabbard? Did she earn it? Did she earn that position? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with literally zero medical experience. I don't care if he sued the pharmaceuticals. The man is a conspiracy theorist clown besides being a really bad guy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a DEI hire. Didn't earn it. You could make the argument that perhaps the only person, even though I don't like him, I think he's a two-faced clown with no backbone, but you could make the argument that Marco Rubio did earn it because of his experience working in government. He earned that position. Can you name me anybody else, the leader of the Department of Education, a woman who has donated boatloads of money to Donald Trump? Can you name me anybody in Donald Trump's administration at this time where you could say to yourself, wow, they really earned that position. They have a ton of experience, but yet Sebastian Gorka, being the racist, bigoted fool that he is, I'm shocked, by the way, that another middle-aged, out of touch, and overweight white dude would call Kamala Harris a colored woman and a DEI hire. Wow, I'm really just shocked to hear that. This is Donald Trump's base. This is who Sebastian Gorka is. And listen, you don't have to just take my word for it, even though I've played you clip after clip after clip. How about John Bolton, who once worked in Donald Trump's administration, has a little bit of experience working in government? Listen to what John Bolton had to say on CNN about the Sebastian Gorka pick.
Well, Sebastian Gorka is a con man. I wouldn't have him in any U.S. government. Fortunately, it's not the highest position he had been mentioned for, but I don't think it's going to bode well for counterterrorism efforts when the NSC's senior director is somebody like that. And this is why, obviously, everybody is now focusing on the top jobs, but the questions of who are the deputy secretaries, who are the undersecretaries, and so on, is also going to tell us a lot about who's actually running the government.
What you called him a con man. Tell us why.
Well, I tell you, he needs a full field FBI background investigation about his educational claims and things like that. I think he is a perfect example of somebody who owes his position purely to Donald Trump. He doesn't display loyalty; he displays fealty. And that's what Trump wants. He doesn't want Gorka's opinions. He wants Gorka to say, yes, sir, and I am fully confident that's exactly what will happen no matter what it is Trump says.
John Bolton is 150% correct. That's pretty much for every single person working underneath Donald Trump, including J.D. Vance, by the way, who once called Donald Trump the next American Adolf Hitler. That's a couple people, by the way, in Donald Trump's administration that have used terms like that. That's everybody so far that Donald Trump has appointed. These are yes men and yes women that will kiss the ring of Donald Trump. They will kiss his feet. They will treat him like a dictator. They will do and say whatever he wants. They are servants to Donald Trump, and they do not put the country first. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Yes, besides the fact that a Sebastian Gorka is completely unqualified for this position, that goes without saying. He is a yes man for Donald Trump. That's what makes these appointees to these positions ever so more dangerous. They threaten the security of this own country because they don't put the country first. They put Donald Trump first, which has been proven once again that Donald Trump is above the law. Because if he wasn't above the law, he would have to face these alleged crimes that he has committed. But because he won the presidency once again, it's why Jack Smith, these charges go away. And then you have these people that are working for Donald Trump that are yes men and yes women around him. These are not people that are going to be going up to Donald Trump and saying, Mr. President, you shouldn't have said that. Mr. President, I think you're making a mistake. Mr. President, I think you're inciting violence. Mr. President, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't do that. There were a few people in Donald Trump's administration in 2016 that did push back. Those people have either been fired or they've testified under oath against Donald Trump, or they flipped on Donald Trump, or they have supported Kamala Harris, or they spoke at the DNC. There were some people that worked in Donald Trump's administration that knew back then how dangerous he was, and they did everything they could, and there was nothing they can do to control him. I guarantee you people like Sebastian Gorkas of the world and Pete Hegseth, if he's affirmed, and Stefanik and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., these are opportunists, just like J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is a perfect example of what I've been talking about on this show. Again, a guy who literally said that he felt like Donald Trump could be the next American Adolf Hitler. That is a direct quote. But then he claims, well, Donald Trump was a really good president, and I liked his policies. So, geez, I was wrong. Did you hear the comments of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on a podcast? I played those comments yesterday. What he was saying about all the Trump supporters out there? Again, calling them, but then says, oh, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. He just apologized. Why? Because he's sorry or because he got caught? Like in most cases when people apologize, they don't really mean it. They just got caught. It's kind of like when you're driving. I would make the analogy to somebody that gets caught speeding going 20 to 30 miles over the speed limit, then gets pulled over by the cop, and before you get the ticket, officer, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. Would you have apologized when you got home to your wife or your husband? No, of course not. You're apologizing to the cop because you probably don't mean it, but you just want to get out of the ticket. That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's apologized for the statements he made about Trump supporters and all the criticisms of Donald Trump, not because he means it. I guarantee you Robert F. Kennedy Jr. still feels that way about Trump and Trump supporters, but he is an opportunist like so many of those other people that will be in Donald Trump's administration. All they care about is being in power. They know how dangerous Donald Trump is. They know what a horrible person he is and how unqualified he is. They know all that stuff. But all they care about is themselves. They put themselves before the country. Mark my words. It's exactly what J.D. Vance has done. He's put his own power and his own life before the country. He knows how dangerous Donald Trump is. Yes, I agree with him. When he said the next American Adolf Hitler, he meant it. I agree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that, yes, some of Donald Trump's supporters do act like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was correct. I agree with these people that have made these statements about Donald Trump in the past, including Marco Rubio, the snake oil salesman that he is, the con artist that he is. I agree with the statements that Marco Rubio made back in 2016. I agree with the statements that Ted Cruz made, calling Donald Trump a habitual liar, incompetent, unfit are the words that Ted Cruz used. Why are they striking a different tune now? Not because Donald Trump has changed. In fact, you can make the argument he's gotten worse. The reason why they don't talk like that now is because he's the leader of the Republican Party. And back then, they didn't think Donald Trump was going to win. They didn't think Donald Trump would be the leader of the party. But now he's the leader of the party. They only care about themselves. So they know if they make statements like that, they'll end up like Liz Cheney. They'll end up like Mitt Romney. They'll end up like Adam Kinzinger. They'll end up like Jeff Duncan. They'll end up like Joe Walsh. ostracized from the Republican Party. They don't put the country first. That's why this whole thing is such a fraud. Make America great again. It's such a fraud. It's such a farce. It's make America white again. It's make Donald Trump great again. That's what this is all about. This isn't about making America great again. It's about you scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's exactly what Donald Trump's administration will be for 4 years. It's going to be about retribution, and you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You want to talk about Elon Musk? You want to talk about a conflict of interest? A guy like that with all the companies that he has and all the money he has, being in power and being that close to the White House every day, and Donald Trump, you don't think that's a conflict of interest? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, folks. I'm just calling it like it is. Sebastian Gorka is a complete imbecile. He's a moron who shouldn't be in a position like that. But again, another guy that has coddled Donald Trump, another guy that refuses to call out Donald Trump, another guy that's been wearing the Donald Trump knee pads for God knows how long.